Hey everybody, welcome back to One More Thing. It has been a while. One More Thing was on a hiatus, a short hiatus while my wife and I went on vacation to New Orleans. If you follow the things I post in the community tab, you probably saw it. Or if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I was posting about it. So, and if you don't, it's at Dollemore. Just about everywhere it's at Dollemore. So, had a great time. Had to kind of reset both emotionally and stress-wise from the job, but also had to reset the phone lines, as they say, here on this show, because so many questions, all the stuff was going on while I was gone for 10 days or so, and it was just too much. Plus some of the questions are now dated. Some of the answers have come out just based on media reporting and everything else. So we reset. I said we were going to post today, and here we are. Got a bunch of questions. I'm not going to talk about a specific topic because I've been doing some impeachment videos, and that's kind of where the crux of the news is right now. But today's just going to be, I guess, as I stumble through, today is just going to be questions, answering some questions that came through, and I guess we'll just jump right in. So the first question is a YouTube comment. Jesse, I love your show and content, but have a question about the process. During this whole process, whilst the Democrats are following the letter of the law, the GOP claims the process at the beginning was secretive and demanded it be made public. Now that it's all out in the open, the GOP claims things need to be done behind closed doors and that it is unfair due to process have such evidence without representation. Nunes called it a three-card Monty, meaning the case against the president cannot be fought. My question is this. When a losing side doesn't see a way clear past facts, they'll argue that everything is a lie and most especially argue that everything about a fact-finding process is unfair. What makes the GOP believe they stand any chance of fooling the American people who now at majority level want Trump out? Thanastasia Amadeus. Well, I think that there has been there's always been disinformation in politics. There's always been spin in politics. Things are different now under Trump. Trump has made a concerted and in some ways successful effort to create the meme of false news, fake news. And lazy Americans, lazy MAGA Americans have used it successfully in their little crowd to rebut anything that they don't like. Anything that they disagree with that's fake news. They don't present any evidence of it being fake. They don't present the truth or the facts in its place. It's just a way out. Now, as far as the specific question, what makes the GOP believe they stand any chance of fooling the American people? The reason they think they can is because their followers, the Republican, largely the Republican Party, it's a cult now. It is not a sensible political party that tries to base their decisions for what is best for America based on policy, based on data, based on repeatable results. So I think they're just banking on the fact that Donald Trump's audience is largely white, and undereducated voters. And I don't even just mean education as far as like a degree or college level. I just mean uneducated in the way that they're not curious. They're not intellectually curious. They're not seeking out the truth of the matter. So that is my assessment on that. Time will tell. I have enough faith in Americans that people are going to be fed up. There's always going to be that percentage that are diehard Trump idiots that are never going to come around. But I have enough faith in the majority of Americans that are going to get tired of this and hopefully force their senators and congressmen to do the right thing. All right. Thank you for the message or the question on YouTube. Next, let's get to a voicemail. John from Missouri.
Yeah, Jesse, John in Missouri, and I just have one more thing to ask. Now, if the Republicans lie and cover up crimes against America for Trump, can they be arrested and thrown in jail for crimes after the fact? That's my question, sir.
John. Well, listen, I always want to caution that we don't try to fall into this trap that because Trump has indicated he wants to prosecute political rivals, that should be the way we do it. That each subsequent administration that comes into power, or a new Congress that comes into power, they spend all of their time looking backward and trying to prosecute failed policy or misdeeds of the other. Now, if there's true crime and corruption, absolutely no one is above the law. We need to do that. But as far as, John, your question, for instance, let's talk about Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan, these dipshits on the Intelligence Committee that are right now in the process of questioning witnesses to find out whether there's enough information, enough of credible instances of obstruction of justice, of abuse of power, to bring articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, forward them to the Senate for trial, and then see whether he's removed or not. Now, they're just trying to they're not trying to make a defense, but if they're doing their job well, they'd be just making a defense of Donald Trump. Unless they're party to the actual crimes, and Devin Nunes might, there is a connection between him and Igor Fruman, one of those Ukrainians that is now under investigation by the Justice Department, Giuliani's pal. But unless they're actual party to the crime, then I don't see that we should be prosecuting them. They should be outed as charlatans and then voted out of office. That's the way you deal with unscrupulous or unethical, immoral politicians who aren't actual party to crimes. So if they don't know that it is actual obstruction of justice or whatever by Donald Trump, then they're just part of the political machine. It's a bummer. Democracy's messy, though. There are no real easy answers. Anyway, thanks, John. Appreciate the question very much. Let's move on to an email. Hi, Jesse. My name is Kel, and my wife, Anya. I listened to your show most days. We live in Redcliffe in the Sunshine State of Queensland, Australia. What I would like to know is if President Ding Dong... If President Ding Dong is impeached but not removed, what is the point? Does he lose anything, or does he just go on spewing his vile and idiotic ideas? He has already tried to drag our brain-dead politicians into his delusions. He reminds me of one of those premiers who was in power in the 70s. He had the same sort of Roman emperor swagger and mannerisms. When he would give a press conference, he would call it feeding the chickens. It was his favorite saying. Anyway, sorry for wandering off for a moment, but could you please give us a little help? We really enjoy your show and we watch it every morning. Our time, GMT +10, Greenwich Mean Time +10. Thank you for any help you can give us, as well as giving us a great and informative show, Anya and Cal. Thanks, you guys, from down under in Australia. I am here in Los Angeles at GMT -8. Greenwich Mean Time -8 in Los Angeles. So you did meander a little bit, but all that you said, I agree with. Donald Trump does try to carry off the swagger of some sort of authoritarian. It doesn't always work that way because he's such an insecure mook. If President Ding Dong is impeached but not removed, what is the point? The point is the rule of law. The point is no one is above the law. If there is someone who is an arsonist, or a rapist, or a murderer, or a fraudster, organized crime, and you don't think that the chances are overwhelming that you'll convict them, you still bring it to trial and try to do the right thing because no one is above the law. You don't just we're probably not going to convict him, so we'll just let it go. That's not how it works. And if the Democrats do that, then how are they any better than Republicans if they let criminal activity, lawless activity, abuses of power, if they just let it go. Look, I understand political strategy, but at some point we have to be the more morally upright party who stand for principles like justice and fairness. And if we don't do that, then what is the point? So that, I guess I'll put the question back to you. What's the point if we don't? Anyway, Anya and Kel, thank you guys. Appreciate you watching and appreciate the question. Another email. Hi, Jesse. I was just wondering something with the pace of that the impeachment inquiry is going and the fact that Trump has managed to not have anyone run against him for the Republican Party. It seems like that it will conclude, hopefully with Trump's removal, and not leave much time for Republicans to have a candidate in the 2020 election. If that is the case, who will run against the Democrat nominee? If the Republicans can come up with no one, will it be a shoo-in? Also, I will say I am hoping that we will vote for Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. Thanks for answering this question, and thanks for everything you do. Dave P. Well, I don't think that's a bad choice, Dave. Voting for Bernie in the primary? He's one of my top choices right now. But I think, I would hope, Dave, that if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, and even someone like Joe Biden, who I'm, I don't think he's a terrible person, but I don't think he's the right candidate right now. Even if he was to get the nomination, I would hope that you would vote for him in the general. We can't do this lesser of two evils bullshit anymore. We actually have an evil in the White House. And anyway, going off the rails, wandering off for a moment, as Anya and Kel wrote. What would happen if Donald Trump is removed? Well, Mike Pence would become the president by virtue of the succession, the order that is in the Constitution. And then the Republican Party would have to come up with a candidate. It wouldn't automatically be Mike Pence, and I think that the establishment would probably try to get somebody who is more electable than Mike Pence. Keep in mind, Mike Pence wasn't running for president when Donald Trump picked him. He isn't the mainstream wonderkin that people kind of imagine him to be now. He wasn't a contender for the presidency. So they would have to pick a candidate, and that would be according to the rules and regulations of the Republican National Committee, going through the convention. Even if they don't have time, they'd have to figure out some kind of a system by which each state would pick the nominee. So that would be it. Next up is another email. This one is from Michael M. Here is one of my biggest concerns. I am very unconvinced at this point that the Republicans in the Senate will do the right thing. However, if they absolve the president at this point, would it fundamentally change our country? What I mean is, if they absolve him of committing crimes to get in office, I think you mean to stay in office, committing crimes to stay in office, oh, there it is, and committing crimes to enrich himself and his family, doesn't this say to all future presidents that this is acceptable behavior? Would we be entering into an era where there is no such thing as impeachment and the president can do whatever he wants? That would be my fear, Michael, that if Donald Trump, well, no, I wouldn't say that. If Donald Trump is not removed, but he is impeached, the message is still sent that this is unacceptable. This is not the way it works. Now, if the Republicans choose to, for whatever reason, and I believe it to be a flawed one, if they choose not to remove him from office, when there is overwhelming, clear evidence, lifelong public servants telling their truth and what they heard, then that's on the Republicans. But he was still held accountable through the impeachment process. He would have been only the third president in the history of our republic to be actually formally impeached. Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, Nixon almost was, but wasn't. He left before, and then you'd have Donald Trump. That's a big deal when you've only had 44 different men hold the office of president. I say 44, not 45, because Grover Cleveland was president twice, and it was non-consecutive. So he was like number 24 and 27, or whatever the number was. Again, going off the rails. But yeah, I think the message would be sent that this is not tolerable behavior. And it's not just a difference of policy. Don't let Republicans say that. Don't let them convince you of that this is just a policy difference. This is not. This is rife, naked corruption on the part of Donald Trump, and someone needs to stand up and do something about it. And the Democrats are. And to their credit, I think they're doing a pretty good job. I think Adam Schiff, who I've had lots of criticism for in the past, is doing a good job of running this like an adult, even in the face of childish pouting and games from Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan and Ratcliffe and all these other dipshits. I think he's doing a good job. So thanks for the email. Appreciate it very much. Next is a question from Carly. Hey, Jesse, I'm sure some Googling would answer this. I'm sure some Googling would answer this, but it just occurred to me, and I thought it might be worth talking about on the show, unless you have already, and I somehow missed it. If a president is impeached and removed from office during their first term, are they barred from running for a second term? Could they still be someone's vice president? Can't wait for the show to be back. I've really been enjoying it. Thanks, Carly. Well, I did cover this, Carly, but I got this question so much that I wanted to address it again. Let's say that Donald Trump is impeached, the trial is held in the Senate, and he is removed from office. The Senate has to then vote separately as to whether to disallow or allow that impeached and removed member to stand for public office again, for federal public office again. I talked about in the case of Alcee Hastings, who was a federal judge who was impeached and removed, and the Senate failed to vote to disallow his future run, and he ran for Congress and won. So that would be up to the Senate to vote. But if he was disallowed, then he could not be the vice president. For one, because it's running for a federal office, and for two, he's in the presidential line of succession at number 2, so he could become president again if he had Don Jr., give a shiv to Mike Pence or something. So, yeah, good question, worth addressing again, because I did get it a lot. Next up, another voicemail.
Hey, Jesse, this is Anthony from Arizona. I just had a question, man. What are some of the crazy or ridiculous things that you used to believe back when you were a Republican, and you look back now and you're like, man, how'd I ever believe that? What's an example of that? Thanks, man. Love the show.
Thank you. Well, a lot. I mean, I'm doing that series now. Now that I'm gone now that I'm back off of vacation, I'm going to start doing them hopefully once a week or once every 10 days. I'll get one out, because with regular video schedule, it's difficult to write those, 1,500, 2,000 words with all the heavy research and everything. But that I talk about in those that I grew up in a fundamentalist, religious, evangelical nutter butter household. And I believed everything that came along with that relative to gays and gay marriage, horrible things that I believed. But I also believed everything economically that the Republicans said. I grew up, with Reagan and looking up to Reagan as some benevolent, demigod of a politician. And so I don't know. The craziest thing, I don't know. Probably that, trickle-down economics worked when all the evidence to the contrary points that it doesn't. But crazy, I mean, think about any ridiculous thing that the Republicans believe, and I was hook, line, and sinker believing that. So no specific, but I appreciate the question, and we're going to get to that throughout the series. If you haven't checked out the series, I think I put the playlist on the front page. If you go to youtube.com/Dollemore, I think there's a playlist there that the 3 videos. There's an intro, one on the Southern strategy, and one on voter suppression. I would encourage you to watch them. I think they're great, especially the I mean, not that one's not great and the other is, but the Southern strategy one certainly is good and very telling. So next up, thank you, Anthony, again. Next up is an email along the same lines. Hi, Jesse. I've caught a few of your YouTube videos on why you are no longer a Republican. I'm just curious as to when you finally decided to break with the Republican Party and what was the final straw, so to speak. Also, what party, if any, you identify with now. I also used to be a registered Republican. Dave. Thanks for the question, Dave. I broke with the Republican Party well over a decade ago. 15 years, at least 15 years ago. And for the longest time, I was no party preference, an independent. Here in California, you actually register as no party preference because if you independent is an actual political party. So now that I live in California, I'm from Idaho originally. I am no party preference. What caused me to leave the Republican Party, absolutely leave the Republican Party, was social justice issues. Even when I didn't consider myself a liberal, even when I was, still kind of adhering to some of those Republican policies, social justice issues bothered me a lot. The recalcitrance of the Republican Party, not trying to look out for the civil rights and human rights of people, of humans. And I still had kind of a libertarian streak, so I was in my mind kind of thinking that it's not the government's business who I marry or who, if gays or lesbians, or it's just not the government's business. Now I look at it more as a human's rights issue that is oppressive and abusive of a government to not offer equal protection under the law. But I think that's the thing that really flipped the trigger and got me out of the Republican Party. I am now officially in the Democratic Party, but only because I registered on November 9th, 2016. I left no party preference and became a Democrat that day because in the age of Donald Trump, I determined within hours of him being elected that sides needed to be taken. And I needed to be a Democrat. As soon as we get rid of him, I'll reconsider that. Maybe I'll become a no party preference again. I still consider myself a liberal. It took a long time to be comfortable with that. And mainly because of, brainwashing, being a former Fox News watcher like you see. So I hope that answers the question. I appreciate it. Next is a YouTube comment on to some of the Republican stuff that I talked about in the voter suppression video. This is from Gino Varga. I hope I'm not screwing that up too much. Can someone help me with these voter ID laws? As a European, I don't get it. I'll tell you how I can vote in my home country. I enter the casting room, I show my ID, and then they search for me on a list. If I'm in the correct voting district, then I get my blank voting paper and I cast my vote. How are Republican voter ID laws different from this? I'm asking for a friend. Oh, my favorite. And then, I'm going to take it as maybe a little trollish. This next one is from Luke Ducklow. Want to drink? Need an ID. Want to fly? Need an ID. Want to drive? Need an ID. Want to smoke? Need an ID. Want a bank account? Need an ID. Credit card? Need an ID. Want a gun? ID. Go to college? ID. Unemployment? ID. Married? ID. Want to vote? Need voter suppression. So I think that's maybe a little dickish how you're phrasing that, Luke. And I don't know if it's just your ignorance of history, especially American history. And this would be the lesson for you, or the answer for you also, Gino or Geno. Our history is that of oppression of people of color. In the South, for decades, Black Americans were systematically oppressed in a way that they could not vote. They had the right under the Constitution to vote, Black men and then Black women through different constitutional amendments. And they would show up in the South to vote, and there would be a requirement of a poll tax or their grandfather had to have been able to vote. All of these little weird laws that individual municipalities or counties or states would pass to try to prevent black men and women from voting. Most pernicious was the poll tax. So a lot of ways, and statistically this drives out that the highest percentage by race in America of people who don't have an ID are black Americans, then Latino, then Asian. Minorities largely don't have IDs by percentage compared to whites. So when you start requiring that, they have to go buy an ID. I would be willing to wager that it's likely that Geno, or however you say his name, didn't have to pay for his ID. It was free, provided by the government. That's not the way it works in America. So when you're requiring someone to buy something to come and vote, it's effectively a poll tax, and that is fundamentally un-American. It is fundamentally going back to a time in history, Luke, that we don't want to return to. I wish we would look at things from the perspective of this is just another way of going back to the 1940s, to the 1880s, doing things to oppress black people. I showed those clips. I tell you what, I'll play them again right here. Clips of politicians from Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and other states who said, we have voter ID that is going to help us, Republicans. Why would they say that if there wasn't evidence that they have that voter ID isn't just a security issue, but a way to help Republicans? Here it is.
Be it. If it hurts a bunch of lazy blacks that wants the government to give them everything, so be it.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Well, I think Hillary Clinton is about the weakest candidate the Democrats have ever put up. And now we have photo ID, and I think photo ID is going to make a little bit of a difference as well.
He won. He beat McCain by 10%. He only beat Romney by 5%. I think that probably photo ID had helped a bit in that.
So that would be my question for you, Luke. Mr. Ignoring History, Mr. Troll Adjacent, if not Troll outright. If those men who run their state Republican parties are so happy about voter ID laws because, that's going to help Mitt Romney get elected, that's going to help the Republican get elected, why would voter ID help a Republican, and by virtue of helping a Republican, hurt a Democrat? How would that be if it has nothing to do, it's just about security, just making sure that there's no fraud involved? How would that be? Answer that question. Because it seems pretty goddamn obvious to me that it is a method of voter suppression. It is a way to disenfranchise black and brown Americans all across the country. When study after study after study has been done, pointing to the fact that widespread voter fraud isn't a thing. There was a study where like 1 billion votes cast were analyzed. And they found like 13 cases of voter fraud out of like 1 billion votes. It's not an issue. Voter ID laws are a solution in search of a problem. The problem is the fact that black and brown people in this country vote overwhelmingly for Democrats, and that's bad for Republicans. So rather than change their policies to align themselves with the bulk of America, they want to do what's anti-democratic. Anyway, sorry. Get me fired up. And then last is absolutely, I don't know if Luke was an actual troll comment or just, looking at it from what he considers a common sense viewpoint, irrespective of history. But here is an actual troll comment. How is it you can use feelings or emotions as fact and regard evidence as inadmissible. Terry Stulte. Well, Terry Stulte, if you actually watch my videos and not just show up in the comments to be a dick face, you'll see that without any doubt, I do give evidence. Evidence is certainly not inadmissible. That's why I use data and research and back up the things that I say with citations in the source in the description. Am I not human? Are you not human? Do you not also use your emotion and your heart to make a value judgment on something? And then after that is done, seek out evidence to bolster the point, because making a decision with just your heart is nonsense. You need to back it up with facts, with a historical perspective, Luke. But get the F out of here. Trying to monetize things here, folks. Gotta say the F, not the full deal. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. I'm a little fine. Am I red? Redder than normal, I mean? Anyway, I would love your questions. The phone number, I have it written down here because I haven't memorized it yet, 714-576-4054. You can also email me now at the new email address, onemorething@dollemore.com. I really appreciate you guys so much. I was asked the other day in a comment about the treason shirt. Well, I don't wear the treason shirt a lot. Well, one, it's because there's nothing to pin a mic to. It's kind of a pain. Also, anyway. So if you want one of these, they are for sale. You just go to dollemore.info, and that will forward you to my Teespring store, and you can get them. I also have Dollemore Daily shirts, a whole bunch of stuff there. Anyway, that would be a great way of supporting the channel here, supporting me, supporting the show. The other way is channel memberships, which is a new thing that the YouTube has rolled out just a few months ago, or at least made available to me a few months ago. And it really is a massive help. I've got about 150,000 subscribers. Thank you if you're one of them. And if I was able to get like 2%, 3% of my audience to sign up for just $1.99 a month, I wouldn't have to worry at all about demonetization, which just about every single video at some point is demonetized. Usually they end up being monetized, but it's only after the bulk of the views, I've realized. So anyway, I would really appreciate it if you'd even consider joining as a channel member. I send out some stickers for the show. There's community chat that's members only. It goes a long way, the $2 a month, if every single person or, just several. But I'm trying to grow here. I want to hire a producer and have somebody so I can put out a lot more content, a lot more live stream stuff, a lot more stuff like this, and not be a one-man band of writing and production and posting and everything else. So I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. I know that we are doing something special here, and I hope that you believe it too. Anyway, until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.